Good morning. Welcome to the Shirley Shirley Show. Today, I'm very pleased to have a special guest. I have Sheriff Shawn Becker from Wood County, Wisconsin, and we're just going to get into a few little discussions here. He has a
Sure.
lot to talk about, and I'm
Yeah.
excited. So, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Shawn, and let the people know exactly what you're about?
Yeah. I'm Sheriff Shawn Becker. I've been sheriff since 2019. I started my career with the Wood County Sheriff's Department in 1997, and it has gone by very fast. Coming
Mhm.
up on 30 years with the Sheriff's Department. I started my career in 1995 with the Sauk Prairie Police Department. Back then, it was pretty competitive to get into law enforcement. And my wife, Julie, and I, we wanted to stay in central Wisconsin. And once I graduated from UWSP, then went to Wausau to NTC to their recruit academy. I was hoping to get picked up locally in central Wisconsin, but it was very competitive at that time. Like the Wood County Sheriff's Department, Portage County, or any of the law enforcement agencies, within central Wisconsin, it was really you had hundreds of applications that
Mhm.
people would apply. So, and what most agencies at that time were looking for people that had the experience, and I did not. The only I had was an internship at the Stevens Point Police Department my senior year of college, which was helpful. I got to know people at Stevens Point PD and things like that. But it's still, Julie and I had to look and say, "Hey, this is the career path we chose for me," and she was completely committed to that. 100% then. And then we started to realize that, it's not happening, getting that full-time job, in central Wisconsin. So then I started applying all around the state, everywhere. To from Milwaukee Police Department to Beloit PD to Dane County, you name it. If they were accepting applications, I was applying, and we had to, realize that we're probably going to have to move away from central
Wow.
Wisconsin.
Hmm.
And I was very fortunate, or we were, to get hired at the Sauk Prairie Police Department, which was a smaller agency, probably really comparable to the size of Clover PD, and they took a chance on me and didn't know me at all. In the back of our minds, we still wanted to, um, come back to central Wisconsin. Julie's um, family started a construction business in central Wisconsin. Now they've grown to be very successful. Herbs Construction, based out of the Plover area. But we wanted to be around family. We started our family already. We had two daughters, Jordan and Caitlin. Caitlin was born down in Sauk Prairie,
Mhm.
and where's your family help? And we're still only
Mhm.
not half away, but we still the goal was to get back in central Wisconsin. So, putting applications out just in after getting those, a couple of years of experience. Sauk Prairie, Prairie to Sac, and Sauk City, just a beautiful place to live. But in our heart, we like, okay, we still wanna get back up into this area. And fortunately, for us, Wood County gave us that opportunity. I'll never
Mhm.
forget when Dave Lowdy, one of my mentors, he was a lieutenant here that oversaw the patrol division. And gave us that phone call. And it just felt like a really, really good fit for Julie and I. And we've been here, like I said, almost 30 years. Did I expect, or did we expect that we would be in the position of having the sheriff position? No. When I started, I just loved being, in patrol, and then working my way up in the department from being a supervisor in the patrol division to get into the investigations, which was a very, very unique situation for me. I was an investigator for several years, and I learned a lot, but it was a tough job. And then from there, getting promoted into an administrative position, and then things just kind of built up from there. And then, why sheriff? And the previous sheriff, Tom Reichert, had mentioned that, we knew that he was going to retire. And Julie and I talked, we're like, okay, he is going to retire. And then where does that fit? Not in just in my career, but our life, and I
Mhm.
was not going to get into, a political position without, having the support of Julie and the family. And at that time, both girls were empty nesters, so we
Mhm.
got, the time, okay, can we commit to this? And that was the discussion that we had, and at the time it fit. not just like I said with the career, but more so it fit in our lives. And it wasn't about me; it was about us, and then about the department. And like, hey, is this something that we want to do? And we were fortunate that it worked out. We got elected. Our platform is mental health. That has not changed, and we'll talk more
Mhm.
about that.
Yeah.
And just very fortunate. We committed to a positive campaign. Where
Mhm.
you see a lot of, even in the local races, a lot of the mudslinging, a lot of the negative things bringing up
Mhm.
about the competition. We said we would not do that, and I still won't do that. No
Mhm.
matter if we have somebody running against us, it's going to be a commitment to a positive campaign and what our platform is. And our platform has not changed. It's all about mental health.
I think that's fantastic and honestly admirable. 30 years is a long time, so thank you very much, and I know your service here has been, very appreciated by many of us, and I'm one of them, but there's many out there that totally, love you as a sheriff and
Thank
wanna
you.
keep you in that position. We really do. I think you do a fantastic job, so it had to be interesting. Now you brought up something else to me. Had to be interesting getting elected in 2019 and then having COVID hit. That
Yeah.
had to be something that was unbelievable.
Well, it was, again, you have public health and you have politics, and then you have it, commingling, and there was so much unknown, out there. And,
Mhm.
and you have the shutdowns, you have, all the things happening. And then, we were very fortunate here in Wood County where that pressure from our health department, Sue Smith did not come down on our law enforcement here in Wood County and saying you need to go out and help or enforce, whether it's,
Mhm.
shutting down businesses, whether it's, mass, things like that. That's where we waited to make any type of a public comment. And then once the state Supreme Court came down with a decision that the shutdown was unlawful, or however you want to word it, that gave us that, all right, that direct decision that affected law enforcement. All right, we're not going to be enforcing this because the Supreme Court said we don't have to, or shouldn't be. But it was, I mean, it was real. I mean, we have to accept the fact that COVID was real, and it did affect many people's lives. In fact,
Mhm.
Julie lost a cousin to COVID.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
was in his early 30s. So it was very real. But just how we worked through it, again, being very fortunate in having Sue Smith in the position she was, it was something that we worked together,
Mhm.
and we got through it. But boy, it was an interesting time. I remember when the shutdown came on it. What was it on?
Like March something. It was in March, I
St.
remember.
Patty's Day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think it
Yeah.
was St.
I mean,
Patrick's
what a
Day.
day to just
I know.
you gotta close everything. It's like, okay. But, there was so many unknowns there,
Yeah,
and
there was.
we got through it, and I think we're better for it.
Mhm.
And if we have situations like that in the future, hope we don't, I think we're better prepared for it.
Yeah, I think it was something that did it certainly did that. It made it where we're aware and people,
Mhm.
are gonna be prepared next time, if there is a next time, and I hope it's not in my lifetime, that's for
Me
sure.
too,
Please.
too.
Alright,
Yeah,
well, so thank you very much for your service, though, that's amazing, and I know what it does to a family too, and especially getting involved in the political scene. It's just
yeah,
it can be ugly, and it fascinates me because it shouldn't matter what party, anything, with a sheriff. He takes care of
mhm,
everyone. It doesn't matter.
absolutely,
You're covering everyone in the county. So,
absolutely.
well, let's hit the one that you and I kinda discussed first was, the ambulance chase with,
Yeah,
the because I think that, when you talked about mental health, and I think this is
mhm,
something that, honestly, this should be taken very seriously. I know a lot of people were joking around, and that story went all over, and I think you even said
right,
national, and I want you to just basically kind of explain that and how
sure.
we deal with that kind of issue in Rapids and in the surrounding area.
Yeah, what a call to get. Our chief deputy, Quinn Ellis, gave me a call and advised, "Hey, this is what's going on," and he came and picked me up. We don't live very far from each other, so we responded to the scene where the ambulance actually pulled into the field and got stuck. But, those aren't situations that happen
Mhm,
very often, and you have somebody that was impaired, going through some other mental health issues or concerns, and decided to take an opportunity to steal an ambulance, and then all of a sudden go on to a police chase. with the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department and the Sheriff's Department. And those are, very dangerous situations that, you put so many lives in jeopardy, as a person that decides not to stop for us for whatever reason that might be. It just puts so many lives in jeopardy. And here you have a situation where you still have a patient in the ambulance. And then you got, at a time frame, but there's other traffic out, but tell you what though, working together as it is so important that I found out through my career, working together, especially with your law enforcement agencies, pays off. Here you have the police department, Wisconsin Rapids PD, their ambulance, the fire department's ambulance, and then you have deputies involved. And then you have other agencies involved as well. The Pittsfield Police Department, having the spike strips out there in position to help deflate the tires, which it did. And that's what really ultimately ended this police chase. After one of the tires deflated, the driver decided to drive into a field and, wasn't going to go very far. The biggest thing for me to highlight, there's really two things. One, the safety of the public and our law enforcement
Mhm.
officers that were involved in this. Nobody was hurt. All right. The second thing we did get that driver in custody, and now we're working through the legal justice system with him. There's going to be culpability that he's going to have to deal with in court, and he should. He's the one that
Mhm.
put many lives in jeopardy, and he's going to have to deal with that. But the other important part of it is the mental health considerations to look at here. Obviously, there's some issues that are going on in this
Mhm.
person's life that we can help deal with that. And that's probably one of the biggest things that, we'll talk a little bit more about mental health and what we've done the last, 8 years. But when somebody does go in custody, we do have a partnership now that we just started with Human Services, Wood County Human Services, where we have counselors in our jail for at least 60 hours a week working with our inmates here in custody. So when somebody does come into jail, they're going to meet with people. They're going to meet with inmates and find out, okay, are there any issues that we could help you with while you're in custody and get that ball rolling on what direction that person might need as far as help. I feel that in the corrections setting, you have to be invested in mental health. The people that do make mistakes in our community, they get arrested for breaking the law and they come to jail. And there's could be many reasons why that's happened. But I'll be honest, probably a lot of it's something to do with mental health. Something's
Mhm.
happened in their life and they've gone down a path that is just not working for them. And
Mhm.
you have to realize that we all do, that the people that are in custody, those inmates will get released and get released back into our community. And I've always felt that, especially as being sheriff, is looking at, all right, what opportunities can we have while people are in custody that they can better themselves and go out and then they don't come back.
Mhm.
If they don't come back, we all win, right?
Mhm.
Remember, if they're back out in the community supporting themselves, their family, they're working, paying taxes, that's a big win for us. And I've found throughout the last several years as sheriff that there are a lot of people in the community that want to help. There's a lot of stakeholders that want to come into the jail. Doesn't matter what side of the party you're on, they want to come in. And it seems like we're very united on trying to help people that are making poor decisions in their life and trying to help them get through these issues. Because once you're coming to jail, you committed a crime. That should be the worst part of your life.
Mhm. Yes,
I
absolutely.
mean, that should be that wake up point that
Mhm.
you should look at like, "Okay, I need to change." Some people won't, but I
Mhm.
still think, most people do in what I've seen. Just looking at some of the programs that we offer in our jail, whether it's the huge partnership we have with Mid-State Technical College, where they make an investment coming in here to help inmates through getting their GED. What a proud moment for
Mhm.
these inmates to work through, for whatever reason, they didn't get their high school diploma. But if we can work with them to get their GED, boy, once they get released, that's a big step up, and then especially if they live in the Wood County area, which most of them do, you could still have another opportunity to, "Hey, I really liked how Midstate taught me here to get my GED.
Mhm.
Now look at, like a culinary program. or something else or wanting, there's so many things to offer at Midstate. Now the doors keep opening up. So, and that's just one part of it. We have, Three Bridges Recovery that has been working with us for many years. People that are struggling through addiction, which is a lot. I mean, with addiction and mental health, it's just so connected. And Three Bridges helps people get through. They're going to be sober. They better be in our jail, but they're going to be able to work on life skills and things like
Mhm.
that. Just another partnership that I like to highlight. But there's a lot of them. And I've
Yeah.
just found that our community is very generous and very willing to help people at their lowest moment in their life.
We're very fortunate with that, that's for sure.
Mhm.
I find that in Rapids and Wood County area. I talked to the mayor a little bit, the other day, we did a podcast, and one of the things that I think is really important that we don't emphasize enough is that we're so lucky to have Midstate College here. We are
Oh,
very lucky. Yeah, there's a lot of I see a lot of it too, with the like that what you're just saying there to get your GED, that gives you the incentive then and the initiative to go
mhm.
out and maybe get a job, even I mean, at McDonald's, whatever to start, and you can build up
Right.
to being a manager at McDonald's, and you're doing very well, so that's really a very good program to have, and I feel very lucky that we have Midstate College here.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm on the board. I was asked to get on the board a couple years ago, and, I'm like, "Oh, does that fit in, our life?" And,
Life.
that I'm so happy that I did because not only, I knew how valuable Midstate is, not just to Wisconsin Rapids, but Central Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
Just how they built through, Adams County,
Mhm.
Marshfield, Stevens Point, and how that's continuing to build. It's just it's a wow factor to me
Yeah,
just to look at, how many of the opportunities that continue to happen.
right.
With the folks at Midstate, they're very connected to the community and the community's needs. So,
Mhm.
like a culinary program, hey, there's a lot of interest here.
There is,
Let's
absolutely.
build that.
Mhm.
A diesel mechanic, AI,
Mm,
all that. They're staying on top of what the needs are for our community, and then investing in those kind of
yeah,
degrees that keep people local too. They'll
right.
graduate with their associates, and boom, they got a job right away.
Right, and I heard that they're also working with the high school now too to give college credits for things, and I think that's fantastic. That's really what we need. We really do.
Yeah,
So
no, I'm glad that you brought that up because, 2 of our deputies that we hired took advantage of that opportunity, and they were done with their associate's degree in a year and a half.
wow, that's great.
And they're building on that even
Mhm,
more and more and just seeing not just Lincoln High School, but,
mhm,
the outreach to all the high schools within
mhm.
Central Wisconsin and that partnership. Boy, just think if you can get a semester done at college in high school,
Oh my gosh,
how
how great.
fast that puts you ahead of the game.
Yep, you got college credits already going in. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
very good. So we're very fortunate with that. I do agree with you 100% on that. And, so you talk about deputies and all. Sheriff deputies do we have in Wood County? I don't even know that number.
yeah, 32,
Wow.
patrol,
Okay.
and then, we have several investigators, total staff with our corrections and everything and part-time staff and everything, we're around 100 employees total,
Okay.
around there.
You
Yeah.
got quite a bit to administrate, don't you?
We have a great team.
That's good.
I love to brag about, the people that work here. I'm very fortunate, I'm very fortunate to have, from people, fellow administrators to, our deputies, our corrections officers. It's a great place to be part of.
Good. Well, let's move on to something that I'm really into. I told you I was a true crime person. I kind of like that stuff, and I follow this a lot. And I saw recently that you closed a cold case on Deidre Harms, who had
Yeah,
been missing since like 2006. And I kind of wanted you to go into that because a
sure.
lot of people ask me when they run into me because they know I like true crime too. And I said, "Ooh, I'm going to ask him that for sure."
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Going back that time frame when Deidre Harm went missing, in 2006, I was an investigator, and I talked a little bit earlier on the show about, the opportunity to become an investigator. I didn't really have the desire to do so in my career. However, when you sit down and you look at the career, it's not all about yourself. It's about, okay, how does it fit in life? And, sitting down with Julie and, looking at the schedule,
mhm,
for an investigator when I was on the road, We worked 6 on, 2 off.
Mhm.
I was on night shift, and it's like, okay. And then both of the girls were, in junior high and high school. I'm like, yeah, let's try it. Very fortunate to get that opportunity, that promotion, but I struggled initially because as an investigator, you're never done. You
Mhm.
always have a caseload, you can't put everything aside, you're always gonna have work. So that was a pretty, a tough adjustment for me personally. Fortunately, I had, other mentors that were around. Wisconsin Rapids, Police Department detective Ted Wetterell was just awesome, and you talk about, the working with other law enforcement agencies and how important those positive relationships are, especially as an investigator. Because I'll get into the harm investigation because that put our two departments together working very closely. Because when Deidre went missing in June of 2006, um, they investigated that case immediately, probably as not just a missing person, but the more information they found that is going down a path of potential homicide. And, Deidre had just had a child. She didn't come home that night. She wasn't getting her mail. Her tax return was coming. Somebody that was, I wouldn't say living paycheck to paycheck, but would count on a tax return like we all do. And none of that was happening. And there was no, activity like on her social security. The first several months was not looking good. And then the fall in November that year during gun deer season, right around that time frame, in the town of Seneca, we found remains, and, I think immediately we all thought that that was probably potentially could be Deidre, and it was, but she was identified through, dental records, and then that really started the big working relationship between, Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, and then DCI as well. And then so we're really looking at this investigation locally, and, there are leads coming in all different directions. We had some
Mhm.
really good ones that we're really focusing on, and some that really didn't, amount to much at all. However, we got a phone call. We got a Crime Stoppers tip. I'd have to look at exact time frame, but it was several months afterwards, that there was an individual by the name of Chris Reback that was down in Douglas County, Missouri. He was in custody for a homicide down there for, Renee Williams. So a Crime Stopper tip comes in, "Hey, you should probably look at this guy. He's from Wisconsin Rapids." And we're like, "Okay." And then the Sheriff DeGase from Douglas County called us and, gave us details about, okay, we have Chris Revac in our jail. We did, and we arrested him for a homicide, and he killed himself in our jail.
Ugh.
And throughout the investigation of that homicide, they could prove the weekend that Deidre went missing, he was in Wisconsin Rapids. So a team of us went down to Ava, Missouri, Douglas County, and did some follow up investigations, as far as interviews with people. Chris's wife, family down there. Chris is a bad person. Bottom line, I
Mhm.
never thought in my career that we would come across a serial killer, and he is. We can
Wow.
prove that he killed 2 people, and
Mhm.
I would not be surprised if there was more
Wow.
uh, out there because he's just a bad, bad person. One of those people that you're taught in your career of that one percenter
Mm.
that is just a terrible, terrible individual, and Chris Reback is one of them.
Wow.
But that investigation, as we built things on and, through bank records, and then the interviews that we did, here in Wisconsin Rapids, there was no doubt that he was the person that is responsible for Deidre's death.
Wow.
So we built as much of a case as possible, and our new district attorney Jonathan Barnett took a look at everything that we had done, and fortunately, he basically did a press release saying that if Chris Reback was alive today, he'd have him arrested for, first degree homicide. So,
Wow.
um, for me personally, that was the first, case that I dealt with that, connected to a homicide. But it wasn't about me. Remember, it's about the victim's family.
Mhm.
I was really upfront with our department. Well, we all were very upfront. Once Revac became a suspect, and we shared those details with them that we weren't sharing with the public, but, we felt we owed them that,
Yeah.
just so they know where it's at. This individual killed himself in a jail,
Mm.
down in Missouri. The facts came out that he did it, and,
Yeah.
it doesn't bring closure. That's a word that, I learned that, I get that that's kind of the word that, oh, it brings closer to the family and the community. And maybe it does to the community in a sense or the department because we don't have to continue the investigation.
Mhm.
But it
Mm.
doesn't bring closure to the family because that does not bring the victim back. And even me personally, for working on the case for so many years, I continue to work on it even when I became an administrator because, what, I have my heart in this. I have a strong connection to, the victim's
Mhm.
family. And it's just something that, I'll never forget,
Mhm.
and, moving forward, it's just going to be something that, I'll talk about with passion,
Mhm.
because, you have that type of an investigation and you look in a victim's eyes, family's eyes, and you see the hurt and you try to get to that point of solving this or be a part of a team to solve it.
Mhm.
Really, that's what it took. Um, it feels good, but in a way it doesn't.
Yeah,
It's hard
sure.
to describe, as an investigator, but
Yeah.
uh, I was very happy with our district attorney for taking the time, going
Mhm.
through. You can imagine the case file
I
when you
can only imagine that many
yeah,
years, yeah.
how many reports are done from not just our agency, but, Wisconsin Rapids, the state,
Mhm.
I mean, that investigation took us in many different directions throughout the state, and then, like I said, to Missouri. So it's, like I said, it's, I'm very happy that, um, the case is officially closed. But it like I said, it doesn't bring her back.
Right.
So yeah.
That's one of the tragedies about that kind of thing is
Mhm.
it's nice to be able to say that to the family that we found the person who did this, but you're right. I don't think the word closure really suits anything, with anyone, truthfully. Uh, I just can't even imagine, your daughter, your sister, your aunt, your cousin, your whatever, and that's just really tragic. So I can imagine that it must have felt really good to do that, and proud of the department for doing that. And I know there's another cold case in Wood County that obviously we can't really talk about because that case is still going on, but,
Right.
it just blew my mind that both names were Deidre. That's just crazy.
Right.
So
Yeah, no, we're still working the Dieter Weeks case as well.
good.
To say that, somebody knows some information.
Mhm.
We're following up on any lead that comes in. It
Good.
is an ongoing investigation, and somebody knows something, and somebody's responsible for it and living with it, and that's something that they have to live with, but it'd sure be nice for the Weeks family if somebody did come forward with something that we can work off that can prove, who was responsible for that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So listen out there, everyone. If you know something, let the sheriff's department know so they can follow through with that. And that because that's another sad case.
Sure
Uh,
is, and Crime Stoppers is a great way to do it. Like I had
oh,
said
yeah,
with the Deidre Harm case, a tip did come in that route, and, Crime Stoppers has been established in Wood County for many, many years, going back to, Bev Galoni was, she's been retired now from the sheriff's department, but I always like to highlight some of the people that, gave their 30 years to the
mhm.
department, what they've done, and Bev was very instrumental of getting Crime Stoppers going back, I think, in the '90s.
Wow.
I don't know exactly when, but don't quote me, but
Mhm.
we've had a strong program on Crime Stoppers for a long time, and it's just an easy way to report something. And
Mhm.
that's what, no matter what it is, whether it's just, something in regards to a theft but any information, we really work off of and we appreciate.
And you can stay anonymous doing that too. So,
Absolutely, and get paid.
yeah, true. So, you and I kinda talked a little bit about, ICE and the
Yeah,
department working with ICE, so maybe you could explain that so people out there can understand that it's
sure.
not something where you're beating up on anything, that you're trying to do your job.
Right. I think it's political. I think we
Mm,
know it's political.
yes.
The agreement we signed, was about a year ago before any of the, deployments that were going on around the country, and, I felt that it was, something that, really the best way to explain the agreement is, if somebody's undocumented and they're living in their community, well, we're not looking for you. All right. That's not our job as deputy sheriffs to look for undocumented people. However, if you commit a crime and we arrest you in Wood County for committing a crime and take you to jail, we will share your information, which we do with many other agencies, with ICE. And then
Mhm.
it's really up to ICE if they want to put a detainer on you. And basically, while that person, that undocumented person, is now an inmate in our jail, once they're going to be released, if ICE puts a detainer on that individual, they have 48 hours to pick them up after they're officially going to be released. So, that's really it. All right. It's really working with our jail, and we're sharing that information of people that undocumented that committed a crime in Wood County, and they can
That's
get picked up in 48 hours. Out on the street, ICE does have detainers on people, but we can't act on those. We cannot serve those. Those are administrative warrants. They're civil matters. However, if that person is arrested for a crime, again in Wood County, we can serve that in our jail, and the
Mhm.
detainer is already there. So once the person is going to get released, they serve their sentence or they post a bond. We will hold them for that time frame of 48 hours, and then ICE can pick them up in that time frame. If
Mhm.
they don't, we release them.
Okay. Well, that's pretty simple and clear to me. So I'm kind of grateful for that because I don't really want criminals out on the street, undocumented or documented.
I
It's kind of how
agree.
I feel. Yeah. So, let's get into the, AB 968. When I say AB, I mean Assembly bill out there. I know you said you've testified and you're going back to
Yeah,
testify in front of Senate because now it's gone up to the Senate. It passed the Assembly, which is
yeah,
fantastic. And people need to understand what that's about. A lot of times when we talk about bills, they really don't know. And when you say AB 968, they have no clue what that's about. So you mentioned about the
yeah,
ATMs and the people in our community that have been scammed. So maybe you could
yeah.
go into that
No,
a little bit.
yeah, thank you for bringing it up. It's been going on for a long time, over 3 years now, that we had our first scam that was reported to us. What you're seeing now in a lot of the convenience stores is these cryptocurrency ATMs, which
Mhm.
allows people to buy cryptocurrency through the ATM. And I want to make it very clear, we're not against, cryptocurrency. We understand that, the future is there, technology is there, crypto is there. Not against it at all. The problem with these ATMs, though, are two things. One, it allows scammers to victimize people, especially our vulnerable people, our elderly population who have gone through their lifetime, their life savings, and now they're living off it, and they unfortunately become a target. And then the other thing too, people need to understand, I mean, you could buy crypto for free. With these ATMs, there's a pretty significant user fee
Mm.
that's tacked on to you purchasing crypto. And that fee is, up to more than 20%. So just
Wow.
figure if you throw $1,000 into buying crypto through an ATM, it really doesn't make much sense to me. But hey, I understand that the crypto's there and this is a way that they want to sell crypto. All right, that's up to the individual person if they want to buy it that way. Now, going to the scam, what's happening, and like I said, it's very tragic to see, people that lose their life savings, and
Mm.
what's happening is the scammer would get that elderly person usually, hooked on, whatever that scam might be, like, "Hey, we need to get money from you to bail out, family member," or "You missed jury duty." I mean, there's so many different ones that are out there, but once they get, that person, that victim convinced that, "Hey, we need you to go to this ATM, this crypto ATM, build or set up an electronic wallet and then start, put in your life savings.
My
And there's no
goodness.
limitation on how much money you could put in that ATM. All right. And
Oh,
that's probably the big concern right there. So we're having victims come in with like $19,000 they put into this ATM. And so once they reported it, once they realized that, I've been scammed, um, normally when you do something, especially online, and you send money somewhere, it's out of the country pretty quickly.
wow.
You can't recover it. So here we thought of, okay, this is a new scam that we're hearing about. And then we sat down as a team with our investigators and we're like, you know what? That cash in the machine is evidence. It has
Mm.
not been removed yet. So, our courts agreed. We wrote search warrants. We had corporation counsel look at and agreed that, yeah, that is evidence. So one of the first investigations we did, we wrote a search warrant to recover that cash for the victim and, put evidence tape around this machine here in Wisconsin Rapids, told the owner of the convenience store what was going on and, unplugged it. And then we told the company that owned that machine, we have a search warrant, um, please come open up the machine and we're going to recover that $19,000. Well, they blew us off. They're
Wow.
whatever. I think the company was owned out of Florida, if I remember correctly. So we waited. We gave them, plenty of time to have somebody come up and open up the machine, and they didn't. So we opened it up, throughout life, and essentially destroyed the machine. And here's the most gratifying part of it is when we had our investigators return the money to the victim.
Mm.
Because that doesn't normally happen, but the way we're thinking, it's evidence. Somebody getting prosecuted for this is probably not gonna happen because
Yeah.
the scammer is not living in, the United States, but here's a way to give them their hard-earned money that they saved up for so long back to them.
Wow.
So we started doing that, anytime that we would get this kind of scam because it's become very popular throughout the whole country.
Wow.
And, we are sharing information, the template of the search warrant to recover the cash. And other agencies were doing it. So we kept doing that and then returning the money. Well, what happened is, the people that own these machines got onto what we were doing. And so then they sued us because they felt that they were entitled to that money,
Wow.
and of course I disagree. And so they sued Wood County, and we're going through court with that. So then what we did is we changed our tactics, where, all right, we will recover the money, but the sheriff's department will hold on to it until we get a court
Mhm.
order of who's going to get it. And that's where that kind of sits right now. But some of the cryptocurrency ATMs, the people that owned it, um, to their credit, they started to give refunds to people that were victimized. But
Yeah.
catch is they keep their, user fee of 20 some
Sure.
percent, and then, they quit doing that in Wisconsin because of what we were doing, and we've got it in emails of, corresponding with our investigators like, "Oh, you guys quit serving us with search warrants because now if you do that, if you quit, then we'll keep doing these refunds, but now that you're not, now that, we're not gonna do refunds for any law enforcement agency for any victim in Wisconsin." I'm like, "Really? Just
Mm.
hey, here's our approach in Wood County. It's great that you're gonna give a refund. I disagree, you should give them the whole money back. I mean, you deposit $50,000, you're gonna keep 20% from,
Wow.
they're getting something back, but come on, let's work together here." And, so we've been working with, our local politicians, our, assembly people, our senators. And it's like, we got to get something done because a lot of the states, when we were talking about it, only two of them had legislation in place to
Wow.
regulate these machines. And that's all that we're asking to do is, not ban the machines, but regulate them, put a
Mhm.
daily, of like, $500 or $1,000,
Mhm.
that will save that person if they put 1,000 in, and then they realize that they got scammed. All right, they're out $1,000 instead of 20 or even more.
Mm.
Uh, so the legislation that's been put together, that got through the assembly, is basically a limitation of that $1,000, and the refund is worked in there as well. Um, so I'm really excited to see what happens tomorrow. Lieutenant Scott Goldberg and I go down to Madison, and we'll basically testify to what we just talked about, and hoping that this gets to the governor's desk soon, and then we can limit these kind of scams.
Mhm.
You try to educate people, but it's very unfortunate and very disheartening that our elderly population continues to get victimized because scammers know that people have saved their life savings, and if they can get into them some way, shape, or form to get that money from them, they'll do it, and it's very sad.
It
And
is.
approach to at least this scam, I think is gonna have a lasting impact through not just Wood County, but the entire state as well.
That'd be great, absolutely. Yeah, it just kills me if they would only use their power for good, not evil.
Mm,
Imagine what we could accomplish, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, how about if you, maybe talk a little bit about, what your next move is? I know you mentioned it earlier, but
Sure.
you
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, next move for me is it's an election year. And I'll tell you what, 2 terms have just flown by. And, sitting down again with, Julie again and at the point of our life at our life, um, we wanna run again. We're gonna
awesome,
run again. So,
awesome.
that election is gonna be in the fall. There could be a primary in August, but I just want people to know that, I'm gonna run. I'm seeking reelection, and
Awesome.
again, I said in the beginning, we're gonna stick to a positive campaign, and the platform has not changed at all. Just we talked about some of the mental health
Mhm,
niches that we have been doing, and those are continuing to build. I found that throughout my career, that's something that there was no training in mental health when I started, and then to see it evolve throughout the years, I'm very proud to be part of it, just not only training our deputies, but our correction staff, and then the partnerships that you bring up, the counselors in the jail, the
mhm,
inmate programming, just being proactive out there is, I'm very proud of our team's approach and how we address mental health. We've gotten a couple of legacy grants that have been very impactful. It started our counseling program in our jail. Have to give a big shout out to Aspire's Behavior Health because they stepped up and were our partner in our jail for many years. And then recently we partnered with Human Services and that just made a little bit more sense because we're connecting with them as far as, any type of, commitments.
mhm.
They're the key player there that is gonna have involvement having them in jail. I'm very proud of that partnership with Human Services. Um, something I'll knock on wood, but here's the impact that people need to realize. Yes, we built a new jail recently for many, many, many reasons. One of them was because the previous facility was unsafe. It was unsafe for staff, and it was unsafe for, inmates, and we had many suicides in our jail where people killed themselves, and that really forced us to look at not just a new facility, but what are those mental health initiatives that we need to build upon within the facility, and that's where you're seeing what I talked about with those partnerships and in the last 8 plus years, 0, 0.
Wow, that's fantastic.
We've had nobody, take their own life in our facility, and not that they haven't tried, but then now
Mhm,
you highlight the staff that we train to prevent that, so I
mhm,
think, I know the impact that we've had just on our inmate population with that commitment in mental health, which we'll keep building upon, and then our staff. Our staff's awesome,
mhm,
recognizing, situations that, they need to prevent or get involved with immediately to prevent somebody from harming themselves. But
mhm,
0. People need to look at that, on 2 levels, that mental health commitment that we've done and the new facility, and that was just one of many reasons why our county board went in the direction they did, building a new facility. I'm very proud of them for working together, and that was a process, let me tell
mhm.
you.
Oh, I can imagine.
In 2019, after taking office, sitting down, the first person was county board member was Donna Rosar, brought it up,
Mm,
"Maybe we should revisit the new jail or a new jail." And then, Ted Ashbeck, our jail captain, you know, my background was not corrections at all. I came from patrol investigations, and Ted very similar on patrol, and then went into corrections to run our jail. But then just to have those open, honest conversations about the conditions of our old facility really enlightened me and educated me on the needs. So it just started to build from there. And we got to give Lance Plummel a ton of
mhm,
credit because it's a business when people are building large facilities, but you really have to justify that to everybody because we're paying for it as taxpayers.
right.
When you look at all those reasons, between, the suicides, unsafe facility was built in the 50s, added on in the, late 80s, it's ran its course. and then we're housing people, up to 100 people out of county at a huge cost. I mean, we were
Mhm.
paying over $1 million a year to other counties to house inmates, and then they weren't getting the programming, things that we offered within the jail as well. They're looked at, quite honestly, as, revenue source, and I understand that, but, and those are just some of the reasons. I'm just so, like I said, proud of, Lance Plimmel for putting together a committee of county board members that really weren't convinced quite yet that we need to move in the direction of building a new facility. But I tell you what, the people you put on that committee, the jail ad hoc committee, worked together. Didn't matter, like I said, what side of the fence they were on. They
Mhm.
they sat down and they educated themselves, and then they went out in the community and talked to people, talked to the voters, and said, "This is the why." And I think people really understood it. Nobody wants to spend, upwards to $100 million. I think at the end we spent about $92 million. A lot of money, but if you keep waiting, that cost is going to continue to go up, and the
Mhm.
problem is still going to be there.
Mhm.
Seeing county government work the way they did, and even with, the city of Wisconsin Rapids, city of Marshfield, people, seem to understand the situation we're in, and helped us move in the direction we did. But very proud of, everybody that was involved in that project.
That's great. I do appreciate the fact that you mentioned people's names that have been helpful over the years, even like ones that are retired, because I think that's something they don't get a lot of name recognition sometimes. So I appreciate that very much. And honestly, I'm pleased with it. I am a new person to live here, a new resident since 2020 actually. So I've learned a great deal about the community, and part of it is that we are proud of the new jail facility and the new courthouse. I think it looks fantastic. And so it was a great job. And so kudos to all of them. And county board members are usually pretty fiscally responsible. So I support that very
Mhm.
much so. I did. And I understand the needs. I mean, when you're talking about
Yeah, especially out of
1950s and 1980s, I mean, that's a long time ago, so we need something that's more updated. And if you say that there hasn't been any suicide since then, I think that is one right there. That's one really good reason to do it. So that's very helpful. I appreciate everything that you
well,
have done over the years for sure. And I
oh,
also
thank
want
you.
to
It's a
yeah.
team effort, though.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you, but I'm really pleased to say that, you're gonna run again, and I think we need you to stay in that seat. So, how about if we talk about a couple of, like,
You
fun things, because we talked about a couple of fundraisers that
Sure.
you have coming up, and they sounded
Yeah.
like they'd be a lot of fun. So maybe you can announce those, and then I will let you get back to work because I'm sure that everyone's gonna be like, "Why is he sitting there just jabbering with Cheryl?"
I'll
Mm.
explain why.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a couple of, yeah. Um, again, and it's very humbling to, bring up, but the community support around here throughout our entire county is just huge. You talk about fundraisers, probably the biggest one that sticks out is our K-9 unit. And we've been very fortunate to have so much support for our K-9 unit that we really don't have to budget for it. Just the people from the community that have been so supportive, just through events. We have a foundation called the Acacia Foundation that does a lot of our fundraising for us, 501(c)(3), and we've had, many members on there that just get out in the community and do a lot of fundraising for us that, and, have put us in a position that, we don't have to budget for our canine unit. We have 6 dogs. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, and getting to the mental health side of things, we were awarded a legacy grant, and we had to look at, okay, how do you connect a canine unit to mental health? And one of the biggest things was, a therapy dog, and we have a
Mhm.
therapy dog in our jail, Lola, that Susanna, that's her partner, Lieutenant Wagner, and does a phenomenal job in our jail, and then also gets out in the community. And we were very fortunate recently to get a school resource officer up in Auburndale, which is something that's probably been needed for many, many years. Jesse Nells has that position. That was through a partnership that the Auburndale School District helps fund. Well, Jesse wanted to get a therapy dog as well. And it's like, well, should we put the brakes on? No, why not? Why? I mean, if Auburndale, if the school district's cool with it, Well, why wouldn't we be? And if Jesse has the opportunity, and he did have a dog that, or he does, that he has Rip, that now he brings Rip with him too when he's, doing his school resource duties. So you look at that mental health side of things, with the therapy dog is just a huge impact. And what we've got coming up here soon is a fundraiser called Bingo Night at the Elks here in Wisconsin Rapids on March 26th. Elks have been just a phenomenal partner. They've got a well established bingo event there that's been going on for quite some
Mhm.
time. We just thought of we had a couple very successful golf outings, and, all right, what can we do differently? What can we do out in the community that people like? And bingo's become very popular. So we're gonna have our second, one, coming up. So if anybody wants to come play bingo, please come. If you wanna put a basket together for us that
Oh,
we'll raffle
nice.
off, hey, please, we're happy with that. You want to be a sponsor, Moser Electric, they're sponsoring the entire event.
Wow.
They great partners every year, always donating to the Canine unit. Like I said, the community is so giving. It's awesome.
Yeah, it
So that's
is.
coming up. And then in June, I believe it's June 13th. This is going to be the third year that we've done this. It's back the badge bench press competition. I used to compete quite a bit and met a lot of great friends, doing that. COVID, like we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
kinda put an end to a lot of those
Mhm.
community events, and, Anchor Bay, the folks out there, I ran it by 'em like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Something, again, different, and, we're raising money for our special response team, so
Oh, awesome.
they do some powerlifting, bench pressing, and then we get sponsors for that. Also do a raffle like that. Both events will have gun raffles going on as well. Those always seem to do really well. But again, with those two events and then stuff we've done in the past, it's very, very humbling to see the people in the community that not only come to support the event, but just, donate, their time or money to both of those causes. It's really very proud of it.
That's awesome. I'm very excited about that. I think the bingo, I think that has taken off like crazy in this area. I've heard a lot about a lot of places having bingo on Mondays and Tuesdays. And I'm sure,
Yep.
in the winter time especially, we need somewhere to go to just have some fun and
Do
joke around a
something.
little bit. Yeah, something. So that's kind of cool. So that's March 26th and then June 13th, back the badge. So if you want more information on that, they can go to the Wood County Sheriff's Department
Yeah, check
website.
our Facebook. Our
Yeah.
Facebook page is probably the
Mm,
most thing that we're active on.
okay.
We're always posting stuff on there. Try to keep our posts, as positive and informative as we can, and so
Good.
all that information will be on there.
Okay, great. Well, hey, this wasn't so bad, was it?
No, it's awesome. I can't wait to
Good.
do it again.
Yeah, I hope you will. I hope we'll do it, we should do it often and just give updates on things and what's going on. Hopefully, it won't have to be about, a whole lot of mental health issues, but I'm sure COVID added to that too. So
Yeah,
yeah, I really appreciate everything that you've done and to work into that too, because it does help all of us in the community. It keeps us all safe if we take care of that. So thank you so much for joining me today.
no, thanks
And
for having me.
if there's a way that people can get a hold of you that they'd like to, can you wanna tell them how to get a hold of you? And
Yeah,
then
best way is, give me a call, 715-421-8705 is my direct line.
okay, there you go, people, you heard that. You heard it from the sheriff of Wood County in Wisconsin, Sheriff Shawn Becker. We're very lucky to have him, and he's gonna go down and
Thank you.
testify tomorrow in Madison in front of Senate at a hearing for they're trying to pass. I'm not sure what the Senate bill number is, but the Assembly bill number is 968. So,
Yep,
look forward to hearing how that goes, and I hope it goes forward to the governor's desk, and I do hope that he will sign that. So,
me too.
thank you so much for joining me today, and you have a fantastic day, and, keep up the good work.
Thank you. Talk
We'll
to you soon.
talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to the Sheryl and Shirley Show. You can find me on pretty much every platform. It'll be on my LinkedIn and YouTube channel shortly, as well as on X. Thank you, and on Facebook. Thank you. Have a good day.